And I think that's everybody I think that's everybody from the waiting room. So welcome everyone. My name is Kelly Sorensen. I'm the executive director at Ventana Wildlife Society. And obviously we're here on our monthly Condor Zoom chat held on the last Thursday of the month. Next month, I just want to give you a quick little preview. We're very lucky to have a special guest by the name of Pete Bloom, who will be joining us. He's an unsung hero from the 1980s who directly took part in the capture of the original condors in the wild flock to bring them into captivity. And, you know, if it weren't for his efforts, we wouldn't have these birds at all. So we're really excited to have him and speak to us about his experience then, and a little insight about him and how he feels about the Condor program. So tune in next month, March 25th, also Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as usual. We're gonna have Joe Burnett speak and his field crew to give us an update on the new release birds that were released in San Simeon, the nesting progress, the recent storm, and a bunch of great stuff. So let me welcome Joe Burnett, Senior Wildlife Biologist. And thanks again, everybody, for coming.
Thanks, Kelly. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everybody again. Yeah, exciting to give you an update. We've had a lot go on in just this short month. So excited to give you an update here. I'm going to share my screen. I want to make sure we did it. Yeah, so welcome everybody to another installment of Condor Zoom chat. Yeah, we have a lot to update you on. And I'm going to get right into it. Again, we have the field crew here. We have Darren, Evan, we have Kara. I believe Stephanie could make it to this one. But when we also have Jonathan down in San Simeon, our intern. And so it's always nice to have those guys in there. They're out in the field on the front lines, seeing these birds almost every day, and really trying to keep up with them for the most part and keep up with all the activity. So I'm glad to have them here. Thanks for joining, guys. Yeah, and we'll have time to ask questions at the end and throughout. Mike's going to help us with that. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so we'll please put questions in the comments and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Let's go ahead and move ahead. This is bittersweet. Our stellar intern, Jonathan McClellan, is leaving us. Tomorrow is his last day. So we wanted to wish him the best of luck. He was an incredible, brought so much to the project. And Darren, you can jump in too. Yeah, we're gonna really miss him. He and Moed, as you know, left a couple weeks ago. So we're gonna miss both these guys big time. And honestly, just wish him the best of luck. But maybe you can add some more, Darren.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Jonathan and Moed both were really great. Really added a lot to the project. And I mean, we were able to keep San Simeon off our minds for the most part because we just trusted them to take care of things down there and just be really responsible with taking care of the 9 birds while we were still caring for them in the pen and just monitoring them closely once they were released. And I know those 9 birds are going to miss them too.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you're here, right? I believe Jonathan's on the Zoom today.
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, you want to share any? Let everyone know what your next endeavors are. Miss you, but we're excited that this was hopefully a way to push you forward in your career in wildlife.
One thing's for sure, I'll be working with black bears this summer. Just don't know where yet.
Very cool.
Kind of line some things up right now, and but for now I'll be taking some time off just to spend time with my girlfriend and the dog and everything. So
excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. And yeah, it was great having you on the crew, and I know you're going to miss those birds. So we'll
Oh,
keep
yeah.
you updated. All right, let's keep moving ahead. Post-storm update. Everyone heard all over the news. We had that, obviously, the big storm that hit in early February, just right after our last Zoom chat, actually. That mega storm came through, that atmospheric river came through and really did some damage. And yeah, the highway washed out right here. This is the photo, one of the many photos that was going around in the news of Highway 1. This is south of, in southern part of Big Sur. So the road is closed going that way. And that's definitely hampering our ability to, a little bit, to monitor the birds on that southern part of the coast. We have a nest just south of this area. So yeah, it's made things a little bit more challenging, but it sounds like they're just trying to get a grip on this. It's such a major, you can see what Mother Nature can do down there when she really flexes her muscles. So yeah, they got their hands full on fixing this chunk of road here. I'm not sure how long it's going to take them. I hear the state is going to try to speed it up, but yeah, that was our biggest event. Unfortunately, our sanctuary did really well, but the Condor cam is still under repair. There's some parts that have, because of COVID, we can't get a hold of some parts, but fortunately Explorer was able to track down the part we need. Really rare part, hard to find. So we found it. It's being shipped up, I think, in the next couple days. So we're hoping by early next week to have the Big Sur cam back. And so thanks for your patience on that. Obviously we actually wanted as bad as you guys. So we have been missing it just as much. Especially during breeding season. It's a great tool to see what pairs are showing up, and if pairs stop showing up together, we can kind of start getting an idea they might have laid an egg. The Big Sur Condor Sanctuary definitely got hammered by the storm. Fortunately, the roads held up, and we were able to purchase a tractor with the rebuild money, and that tractor has already been, I can't even tell you how valuable it's been. We were able to get the road cleared and accessible within a few days. So it was a really great addition to the sanctuary maintenance. And again, just thanks for your patience through the storms and everything. It's just, it's a lot. Everything we do out there, it's very remote. It's just, it's like watching paint dry. It just takes a while to get stuff done up there. So definitely appreciate everyone's patience on that. So with Nico and Eva, they're doing great. And the really good news, I think the last update, Mike Clark at LA Zoo reported that Eva had really become a social butterfly. And the really good news is now Nico is just as social. So they're both extremely social. You can see the photo on the left is the group of release birds. That's the next, they're in a batch with other birds that are getting scheduled for release. And they are just a really tight group. And you can see on the right photo, Nico, this is as friendly as it gets. So Nico has made a really good friend, and that's 1043. So that's a bird that Nico has a really close bond with. So it's really cool to see even Nico coming out of that evacuation kind of mode and really settling in and really getting comfortable with the other birds, because that's the biggest step towards getting them released this fall. So we're excited to see them both on track. Yeah, it's looking pretty good on that front. And the wild fledged chicks, not much has changed. Pinnacles was able to get a visual of, Darren, can you remind me which one? Was it 1027? Do you remember?
Yeah, I believe it was 1027.
Yeah, they were able to get a visual of that bird, which is really great. We still haven't had a visual of stud book number 1030, the Big Sur fledgling, and we're watching the pair really close. It's still hard to say whether what's the status of that bird. Again, having the cam back will be really helpful. So we're kind of waiting to get the cam back up and running, and we're going to watch really closely and look for 1030 to show up. So yeah, verdict's still out on that chick, but as for pinnacles, those three look like they're going strong. 1021, 1027, and 1034. So that's pretty exciting. Status of the San Simeon 9. Again, everyone watched us release these birds this winter. Super exciting. You know, we did the first release and at the end of November. We released 4, and then we released the remaining 5 at right before Christmas in mid-December. And then we had the 2 birds show up from Boise, the last minute additions, Kodiak and Sierra, 974 and 990. And yeah, it's a male heavy group. We have 2 females. And again, that's not by design. It's just some years you get more males than females produced in captivity. So that's just how it shook out this year. And I'm gonna let these guys, this is a photo. Evan's gonna jump in. Evan, you took this photo last time you were down there, right?
Yeah, a few weeks ago. They're all hanging out in the snags. It's just really close to the feeding slope. Got some nice shots that day. The lighting was, really nice. It was in the evening. It's beautiful down there.
Yeah, it's like that evening light. Yeah, and those birds have big crops.
Yeah, definitely eating well.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I think who is this 974? And I can't see the other one, but he's been hanging out. 974 has been hanging out with Kodiak's been hanging out a bunch with Sierra, right?
Yeah, they starting out, they hung out a lot together, kind of a little buddy system going on, and eventually they kind of split off. And I think Darren, you can back me up on this, but 974 has almost made it to the other release site recently, right?
Yeah. So a couple of days ago, it looked like 974 followed another bird, 904, who was actually released from San Simeon in 2019 up the coast. And almost he came so close, came within about 5 miles of the release site, but then decided to hunker down a couple canyons south. And his GPS hasn't downloaded in a couple of days, but we're still getting his radio signal the past few days from along the coast. So he's still there. And yeah, hopefully he makes it up to the release site in Big Sur soon.
Yeah, so everyone, I just pulled up a slide of a map. This is a map that Evan put together using our GIS Esri program, and that's Evan's background. So maybe Evan, you can explain what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so I put this map together kind of to show how the birds have been slowly spreading out from the feeding slope, the release site. And you could kind of see the monthly progression, the first one being that tealish surrounding area where they really hunkered down and stayed on the slope. Whereas, the second month they got a little bit farther away. They're getting a little more adventurous. And this past month is just really, we're seeing them move around a whole lot more. You can see how quickly it is expanding. 974 was kind of exciting to watch move up the coast. There was he was kind of trailing 904. So he found a buddy and they just kind of kept working their way up over the past couple of days. And, even this morning, we haven't got the GPS, like Darren said, for 974, but I was down on the coast this morning and got the signal for 974 in that area. So really exciting. Hopefully they'll make it to base camp pretty soon, start working in with those more mature birds and, the different parts of the population. I thought it was really interesting and exciting. This was kind of my first time watching release birds this closely. Having this GPS data is really awesome. Just being able to keep a really close eye on them and see how they're moving and interacting with the land is really awesome.
Yeah, and Kara and Jonathan, you guys went up. You were up track. Did you get his signal yesterday, right? Or was it on Wednesday?
We didn't get his signal yesterday, no.
Okay. Yeah, so the cool part is I like when they do these flights because, you can see here it's about 30 miles, but it's on prime time foraging areas, natural foraging all along that coastline. that he could easily follow these older birds to a wild carcass. So that's pretty exciting. Especially this time of year, we got with these big storms and a lot of, the big swells, we tend to get a lot of stuff washing up. So yeah, maybe we'll get lucky and he'll find his first wild meal while he's up there. Yeah, great maps. Nothing tells the story like a map. I like these flight lines, Evan, that is that kind of the general flight path they took?
Yeah. Generally, those points on the map are the farthest place they have gone since being released. Now, that doesn't mean that's where they're currently at. They've been flying back and forth all throughout that landscape. But yeah, generally to those farthest points, those lines are showing how they moved throughout that area.
Very cool. These guys are well on their way. It's just amazing the influence of these older birds on these younger birds. I mean, they just want to follow them, and what a great, I loved how you noticed how the other bird was following 904. You just said 904.
Yeah. And I know for 956, that was an exciting one to watch. He was following 725 up and down the coast. And it seemed like he got to the point where, he just couldn't keep up anymore. And then he turned back. And just having that, high resolution GPS allows us to watch those little details and interactions. It's really cool.
Yeah, you wonder if he got cold feet, it was like, oh, I'm turning around.
Right.
Yeah, it's got to be intimidating for these guys to follow, in all this new area. And who knows what other raptors are dive bombing them, they probably come across golden eagles and peregrines and, just, it's got to be quite the adventure for those young birds following these older guys around. So, wow, what a cool shot. What a great overview. But yeah, that's a 30-mile flight. How many days did he do that 30 miles in?
It was relatively quick. I think probably maybe 3 days. We haven't had the data for a little bit, but I think he got up there quick.
Yeah, and I think this kind of goes into the whole movement conversation. And you and Darren, did your guys' graduate work. You both did your graduate work related to movements. And I think it's really hard to explain to people how much these birds move and how far they move, especially the older birds. And yeah, this is another map you put together for us, and that showing the high GPS activity, which is if you look on this map, folks, it's those diamonds shapes are the general release areas, the 3 different release areas between, you got Big Sur, Big Sur up here on the coast, San Simeon on the coast, and you have Pinnacles up here. It almost forms a triangle. And where all the yellow is the highest, brightest yellow are basically near the release sites. And then other areas these birds like to go visit and feed. But on the perimeter of this are the little forays these birds make, which is pretty notable. So this is just 2020. And if you look up to the north, they went and flew just below Livermore. And I think everybody here knows where Livermore is. That's quite a distance. We're talking from here, 100 miles north. And then on the same thread, they've flown south down into Southern California, meeting up with the Southern California flock, and continued on, not quite into the Sierras, but we've had birds from Big Sur fly up into the Sierras as well. They keep going. But I think, what's really cool about this map is this looks like the historic range of condors. It's pretty awesome. And this doesn't include the Southern California flock, which really moves up into the Sierras. Anything else you want to add on this, Darren or Evan, about this map?
No, I just think it's, again, to emphasize the GPS, what that opens up for us in terms of studying these birds and monitoring them. You could see how far they move, and, these movements could happen in the matter of, days, it's very quickly. So keeping up with these birds are really challenging. So this is an awesome tool to have.
Yeah, those radio transmitters are great, but for stuff like this, you got to have the GPS. There's just no way we would gather this data from using radio telemetry. I think it has been a game changer technology for wildlife monitoring, not only condors, but they're doing it with whales, great white sharks. I mean, you name it. And the data is it always just blows our minds when we see it. Didn't they figure out, actually, Jonathan Hall, didn't he figure out they have a new 1-day flight? They have the biggest flight record, right? A single day flight. Isn't it up over 250 miles in a day? Do you guys remember?
Yeah, do you happen to know, Darren? Sounds good. That sounds right on.
Yeah, before it was thought
I can
150
remember.
miles in a day, but with the GPS data, that number has moved up significantly. It's only,
Yeah.
they've had, I think they had a single day record. It was like 260 some miles. So pretty impressive, just shows what these birds can really do. If they put their mind to it, they can really cover big areas. So, and I think as the population grows, we're going to see bigger and bigger movements. We're going to see the real expanse of this bird and the species, just to really see how they move. So yeah, thanks guys for putting these maps together. These are really great. Nesting update, pretty exciting stuff. The crews just got together. We got together with Pinnacles earlier this week, and we confirmed, and we have 3 pairs that have laid eggs. So that's super exciting. We're off to an incredible start. We were playing it safe early on because we had such a 2020 was such a hard year on the flock. We wanted to be cautious about our estimates, but this is very, very encouraging. This is we're really excited at the potential this year. The 3 that have laid, Pinnacles has a pair. It's a Pinnacles male, 589, with a female from Big Sur, 569, Phoebe. And they laid an egg at the park. And this is a nest that the Pinnacles National Park crew was able to put a nest cam in. It's not live streaming. They can actually, if the cam goes to the crew, they don't have a means of getting the signal out to the public, but they're able to watch this nest really closely. So they were happy that they used the nest that they already had the cam in from previous years. So they're going to be able to monitor this nest really close, and they were able to confirm an egg on the camera. Was it the end of last week or the week before that? Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, I think it was the week before this.
Yeah.
This one.
So that's pretty exciting. So that was the one of the first nestings, and then literally right around the same time, Darren, you can speak to the next pair, what you guys saw there.
Yeah, certainly. So 438 and 663 have been together for a while. We actually think that they tried to nest last year, but unfortunately their attempt failed. But they seem to be doing pretty well this year. They've been really up in the past year and a half or so. We've always seen them together, but in the past few weeks, we've only started seeing, one bird at a time, or getting one signal at a time for a bird, which is a pretty good sign that that they might have a nest, especially combining that with the GPS data we get from 438, because she's been returning to the same spot in the Big Sur backcountry for about a month now. And yeah, it looked like over Valentine's Day weekend, 438 was in that spot, just hunkering down there for a few days continuously, which is a pretty strong sign that that an egg was laid. So we're pretty confident that an egg was laid sometime during that weekend. And since then, we haven't seen them together or signaled them together. So it's a good sign that they're taking turns at this point, going back to the nest to incubate.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to know that we lean on that type of data to confirm nesting. Some of these nests are just so remote that getting there, especially now after the storm with trails or just everything, that area they're nesting was near the Big Sur River, so it's really there's been a lot of damage back there. So even getting to this nest probably isn't an option for a long time. So we have found though these GPS patterns with these birds were so strong, and has been it's been pretty reliable for the most part. I can't imagine there were only once or twice where it threw us off, but it's pretty spot on when these birds get locked in. So yeah, that's kind of we're hanging our hat on that based on the GPS activity, and then just the fact that Darren pointed out we're not seeing them together. Yeah, and then that leads to the next pair.
Yeah, so
Former
204.
I mean, former trio. Yeah.
Yeah, former trio. So yeah, 204 and 646. They're a more experienced pair, I would say. 438 and 663. This isn't 438's first nest, but they're a new pair. This is the first time they're nesting together. But 204 and 646 have nested before, and kind of similarly, we had seen them together a lot in the past year, but more recently have only been seeing them separately and signaling them separately. But it wasn't quite as obvious that they were going to nest soon as it was with 438 and 663. As I had said, for 438, her GPS data showed her going to the same spot over and over again. But with 646, she returned to her previous nesting location only about once or twice before we started noticing that pattern again, where she was there continuously for a few days, which indicated to us that she was laying an egg. So sometimes it can happen like that. Sometimes there's a lot of, you get a good sign like with 438 that they're about to lay, or that there's a strong chance they're going to lay. But sometimes like 646, it just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, we've seen that with the real experienced pairs. They'll just flip a switch and start nesting. We won't get any warning. Yeah, but I think the biggest news there is that it's pretty much confirmed for Fuego is no longer in the trio mix.
Yeah, we really haven't seen him with 204 646, like not nearly as much as we had seen them together in the past when they were a trio. And as far as we can tell, 470 really hasn't been around that nest area as much, which when they were a trio, he was there all the time, participating and incubating, things like that. But we really haven't seen that. He still hangs out with 204 quite a bit, like when they're in Big Sur together. But otherwise, he really hasn't been involved in the nests like he has previously. So we're pretty confident it's just 646 and 204 now.
Yeah, we had a good visual of those two last week, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that dynamic play out where, they were a trio and then finally something happens and somebody's got to move on. So, yeah, seems like we continue to learn, about the nesting dynamics of these birds.
Can you rule out 470 going to another bird and perhaps mating? Have you seen any observations of potentially that bird?
I couldn't tell what you said. Okay. You said bowel. Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, make sure you turn off your mics. Sorry, I could hear somebody.
All good.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I'll just say, we haven't seen 470 displaying or really hanging out with another potential partner at this point, but the nesting seasons,
Right.
We're still kind of in the thick of it. So, we could still see something later on. But yeah, up to this point, no, we have not seen any sign that 470 has decided to pair with someone else.
Yeah, I think this photo kind of speaks volumes. He's on the outside looking in now. It's this is a photo by Tim Huntington, one of our volunteers, and he watches this pair very closely, and he was picking up on this pattern. And it was his photos really captured the moment of kind of this is us, not you, buddy. So it's it's interesting. Here's the photo this is hot off the press from Pinnacles. So thank you, Pinnacles, for sharing this. This is from their nest cam. You can see up in the very top of the shot there, you can see the light green egg. That's 569 Phoebe's freshly laid egg. So we're hoping to see a chick, from the time it was laid. I think the lay date for that one was just before Valentine's Day.
Yeah, February 12th.
Yeah, February 12th. So we should see an egg. We're thinking mid-April. We should have a chick by then. So just for everyone that doesn't know, the incubation is about 57 to 60 days to hatch, roughly 2 months. So it's pretty spot on in that range. So that's when we expect to see a chick hatched, and then again they'll spend the next 6 months in the nest, until they fledge right around 6 months in age, give or take a couple weeks. So yeah, this is really exciting, and this pair has been successful before. They're experienced, so we have high hopes for these guys. Yeah, so big thanks to Pinnacles, our close partner that we work with, for sharing this photo. And we have potential for more. Yeah, I think the biggest, I know Pinnacles has a few pairs. We have a few pairs in Big Sur that can still potentially go. But I definitely wanted to talk about the trio at San Simeon. What's been the latest down there? I know, Jonathan, you've been watching a lot. You have any updates on how the trio at San Simeon's doing?
So they've had, a lot of activity, of course, some sexual activity, and I'm not sure that they have a nest yet, but today on the slope, I didn't see 725, but I did see 566. So there might be something sort of beginning to start. And of course, there's a lot going on that, you don't see on a daily basis. So, hopefully something is starting soon, but I haven't confirmed anything yet.
Cool. Yeah, and I think I know our cam viewers have noticed. They've been watching too and helping us with looking at which birds are there at certain times, and they've noticed too the last couple of days they haven't seen 725. So I noticed that in the comments the last couple of days. So that's pretty interesting. Maybe they're gearing up. I mean, the timing's right. We have these other birds starting to lay eggs. Yeah, and we know they can do it. So that they're a pretty experienced trio there. So yeah, that's exciting. So maybe we'll have that news pretty soon. Yeah, and I think yeah, Evan, this is your photo, right, Evan?
Yeah, I took that actually the same night as the other photo that you included, and it was just a nice shot seeing them up on that bear. You snag hanging out. You could see some, affection or whatever's going on there. But yeah, it's nice to see the trio together.
Yeah, it's a great photo. Yeah, and it's interesting, looking at 7-Eleven sitting there on the outskirts. It makes you wonder if he's eventually going to get the boot too. But yeah, these trios are definitely really interesting. How they develop, and we're going to see how some of these play out. We're seeing it right now with how 470 could be a growth thing that some of these young males will hang, or young females will jump in with a pair, and then maybe when they get old enough they move on. So yeah, pretty fascinating for sure. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how long if 7-Eleven sticks around. So
if I could just jump in real quick, Joe, looking at an overview of the GPS data, 725's GPS hasn't downloaded for a couple of days. And another thing we look for with a nesting female is when they go into a cave or even a cavity, sometimes the GPS won't be able to transmit data out of that cave. And we're pretty confident that 725's nest is a cave. So she might be in there laying as we speak. So
that's awesome.
Hopefully we'll have a pretty positive update here in the near future on that nest.
Very cool. That is really good news. So that would be nest number 4. So yeah, we're right on track to potentially we might be up near 8 nests by the end of the year. So that's or by the end of the season. That would be great. So yeah, I always like to review the nesting facts. I mentioned the incubation, but these are always good. I know there's some folks that haven't tuned in before to our chats, but since we're in the middle of nesting season, it's kind of good to know what the different patterns of the birds are, kind of when do they start to nest. People always ask, when does courtship begin? When do the males begin courting females and displaying to them? And that timing is typically, November, December. And then that transitions into egg laying, which is where we're in right now, probably mid-January and as late as May. And again, they're going to lay 1 egg every other year. They're going to spend that time, rearing their chick. But then how long do they incubate? 57 to 60 days. How long do the chicks stay in the nest? As I said before, about 6 months. and how long do they stay with mom and dad? And that's about 18 months. Again, that pair is going to start laying again after they spend about a year with the chick after it leaves the nest. And so that's right around 18 months. And so this is a question we get asked quite a bit. And do pairs mate for life? And for the most part, yes. But again, if they lose a mate, if their mate dies, they'll definitely repair, and find a new mate. So it's not always, sometimes it takes some birds longer to, find a new mate. It varies. And are these trios unusual? We're just learning about these trios. We're finding they're not exactly unusual condors, and they appear to be becoming more common. And there might be a different function to these trios. It's part of what the research aspect of learning about their birds' behavior. There might be a strategy there that we'll learn more about as time goes on. And then, condors began nesting in in Central California in 2006. That the very first nest attempt failed, but in 2007 they were successful. And since then, the birds have produced 47 chicks in the wild. And that includes the 5 in 2020. Of those 5, 1 was evacuated in eco right after fledge. So we currently have 4 that we think are still in the wild fledge. But we technically have 5 fledge in the wild in 2020. So really cool to see these birds reproducing so well. We know they can do it. We know, they're using redwoods, they're using caves. Again, they like a nice big cavity. Ironically, the redwood caves are caused by fire, are created by fire. They're hollowed out and they're pretty high up off the ground. So it's really interesting. We were devastated by the fire losses in August of 2020. But I think it's that balance, that condors have in nature. Fortunately, that sort of event doesn't happen all the time. Our biggest concern still lies with lead poisoning from ingestion of, lead bullet fragments. But so interesting enough, these redwood nests are really important. So the population status, not much of a change from last update. We're at 90 birds. Again, Pinnacle's released a couple, 970 and 972. They're out flying around the national park, Pinnacle's National Park right now, following the lead of the older birds. And free flying deaths so far in 2021, we're at 4. We lost a bird since the last update. Pinnacle's Condor number 877. Again, that bird's been sent off to determine the cause of death. We still don't know exactly what killed it, but it's unfortunate. Definitely 4 deaths so far in 2021. It's not ideal, but again, we're optimistic that we think over the next few months things will calm down. But it is part of it. We'll find out what these 4 deaths are eventually. And, again, we know our leading cause of death is lead poisoning, and that will remain our biggest focus. That kind of gets to our outlook for 2021. The Big Sur Condor Sanctuary rebuild is underway. Pretty exciting. We got a lot of momentum going there. We're waiting kind of for the weather to calm down a little bit. And then we're looking forward to the releases. We're going to release as many birds as we can this year, which will include a Nico and Eva to get them back out there. So we're hoping as many as 10 plus release birds in Central California this year. Wild production's off to a good start, having 3 nests already. And we could have as many as 8 to 10. I think 10 would be the upper end. I'm thinking we're probably end up close to 8. So things are looking really positive there. And then again, the non-lead outreach and free non-lead ammunition giveaways, we're going to continue that to help reduce lead mortality. Those are the big actions we have, positive kind of outlook we have for 2021. And then before I get to that though, Mike, do we have more questions?
Yes, Joe, thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Just a quick backtrack. Joe just updated earlier the camera status. waiting on a part to fix that, but we hope to have that operational soon. We really miss it, just like you do. Aniko and Eva are doing great. Some questions about lead poisoning, actually, and I thought that I would just field this one.
Please do.
The question is, if lead is outlawed for taking wildlife in California, why do we still see a lead threat for condors? And the best answer I can give is that this is a process that takes a little bit of time. Getting the lead out is a process, much like getting the lead out of paint and gasoline. We're seeing some progress, and right now we are challenged with very poor availability of non-lead ammunition. And so even though hunters and ranchers are required to use non-lead when shooting ground squirrels or wildlife that they hunt, they're having a difficult time finding and purchasing non-lead in their stores. And so that is something that Ventana Wildlife Society is working to help. We're working with ranchers and hunters to help them find non-lead ammunition and to get it. As an example, the last 2 days, yesterday and today, I drove through Kern County to Edwards Air Force Base, down to northern Los Angeles County and Ventura County, and then back up here today to speak with hunters and talk to them about this issue, and also provide them with free non-lead ammunition. We have a program where we actually help hunters by providing free non-lead ammunition. This program is funded not by membership of Ventana, but by grants that we raise money for specifically to help condors in this way. So we're speaking with hunters and ranchers, we're providing free non-lead ammunition, but with the current availability, it is a challenge, even though the law dictates that they need to use non-lead. It's something that takes time. We're hopeful that things will improve in the future. A couple of specific questions regarding the nesting. Someone wanted to know if the pair 589 and 569, do they nest on are they nesting on a cliff shelf? And as a second part to this question, do you see a difference between pinnacles and the Coast Range in terms of nest selection sites? Do the birds along the coast prefer redwoods, and the birds interior prefer cliff ledges? And is there a difference between Central California and Southern California?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so that nest is on a cliff in a cave. You know, that's very typical of pinnacles. I mean, that's what makes pinnacles so, hence the name, are these spectacular rock formations. And, there's ample places for condors to nest. They historically nested there. We know the last nesting record was in the early 1900s. So we knew condors were attracted to that area to nest. So the difference between pinnacles, you're typically obviously going to find more cave nests because redwoods only occur on the coastline. Their inland range only goes in about not even a mile from the ocean's edge. So, that limits that to birds that are affiliated with the coast. And we have found that birds that nest on the coast, the preference is for hollowed out redwood trees. And then we have seen nest caves on the coast as well, but the clear preference is towards redwood trees. But we have had, it's not too far inland before they start switching to caves. And if you move into Southern California, it's predominantly caves. Historically, condors did nest in giant sequoia trees in the Southern Sierras. One of the last nesting pairs in the wild in the 80s, 70s and 80s was they were using a giant sequoia nest. And there's some famous photos of that nest tree. And Noel Snyder, I think he took those photos in his book. Those are So we know that they're opportunistic. You know, they're looking for. I think if the shoe fits, they'll wear it. You know, kind of a thing. That if they have a cavity that works, that's clean, dry, suits their needs, so they'll use it. But obviously, you need to have a big tree to house a condor. I mean, two condors. You know, two condors coming in and out. Most other tree species probably wouldn't be able to house a couple condors nest, but there is written record way back when of condors nesting in hollowed out oak trees. We don't know how true that is. We haven't seen it, but you never know. Based on how adaptable they are, I wouldn't doubt it. But right now we know they definitely prefer redwoods on the coast. And as you move inland, it switches to caves, you know, just in really steep areas, you know, big, spectacular rock formations is where you're going to find condors nesting.
I'd like to circle back to the lead issue, because we are getting a number of questions about the legality. It is legal to sell and purchase lead ammunition in California stores, and it's still legal to use lead ammunition at target ranges if you are not shooting wildlife. And so the non-lead is a requirement for shooting wildlife. And so it's still, hunters are still able to purchase lead in stores. And with the poor availability of non-lead, that can be a problem if the only thing they're finding in the stores is lead. A question from Gina asking about our lead ammunition exchange. For a period of time, we were allowing people to bring their lead to us in exchange for non-lead ammunition. Since COVID started, we put a pause on the exchange part, and we're just supplying non-lead. As I said, the hunters can use the lead at target ranges. With the exchange, there's also a challenge of what do we do with the lead once we get it? And so disposing of that lead is an issue as well. For a period of time, we were donating lead to groups who were gaining education about shooting, youth groups learning to shoot, kind of fostering that next generation of responsible hunters. And in that sort of training environment at a target range where there's no interface with wildlife, we were providing some of the lead that hunters would give us. But we put a pause on that for now, and we're mainly just doing the non-lead distribution without requiring hunters to give us the lead in exchange. Also a question about what can we do as the general public to help this issue. And I think education is key, but also just first and foremost, treating hunters and ranchers as the solution to the problem and not the problem itself. Hunters and ranchers are doing the right thing. They are making the transition to non-lead, but as I said, it's a process and they need our support. They're conservation minded, just like we are, and they want to do the right thing, but it's a matter of allowing that time to complete this transition. And so just sort of that attitude of embracing the hunting and ranching community as groups that provide important habitat for condors. Ranchers provide open space, water to drink. Their land is essential to condor recovery. And as they become more in tune with using non-lead ammunition, they're providing food sources as well. And so they need our support, and they will be part of the solution. I've been telling people that Nico and Eva will be released probably at the San Simeon release site, and I believe they'll be released together. Am I telling the truth here, Joe? Is there any plans to separate those newfound friends, or will they be released together?
Yeah, we're fairly positive both will be released together for sure.
And also, when do you have any timetable update on the Yurok tribe release effort, when that might occur?
Yeah, I think they're still jumping through some hoops, but it's very close. They're definitely I think they're closer than they've ever been. But I'm hoping we're maybe as soon as this spring. I mean, not this spring. I'm sorry. Fall potentially. And again, they've got a lot of setup to do. They still have to build their release site, construct their pens. So, maybe this time next year, they'll be gearing up to let some birds go. But they'll probably get the birds to release probably in the fall, and hold on to them. And, they're dealing with a whole different dynamic up there with weather on the North Coast, up around Humboldt. So they'll have to negotiate that and kind of find those windows, to best release. But things are looking good. I think they're pretty close.
And yet more questions on the non-lead front. The cost of non-lead versus lead ammunition. Yes, non-lead ammunition is a little more expensive than lead ammunition. These days, with the extreme shortage of ammunition in general, the cost of ammunition, both lead and non-lead, is higher than it normally is. So across the board, we're seeing higher prices. The question, why is non-lead in such short supply? Let me clarify and say that all ammunition right now is in short supply. It just so happens that there are fewer brands of non-lead ammunition compared to the lead. There's just so many different varieties of lead for different calibers. Great selections now in non-lead, but since COVID started, we've seen ammunition across the board decline and disappear from shelves in the store. And so what disappears first are those relatively few non-lead brands, and what's remaining are a few of the lead brands. And so when I visit a store and look at the shelves, what I'm seeing are a few boxes of lead, and that's about it. And so that's the challenge that the hunters are facing. They go into the store, they're not finding non-lead. The boxes that are on the shelf, they're not always clearly labeled whether they're lead or non-lead. And so the hunter may not even be sure if a box is lead or non-lead until they get that box home. And so we need to see greater availability of non-lead. We need to see greater marketing in terms of clearly labeling what's that ammo is on the box. And so some of these issues are things that Ventana Wildlife Society and other non-lead outreach personnel from Pinnacles National Park and Institute for Wildlife Studies and the Peregrine Fund, all of these have staff working on non-lead outreach and dealing with some of these issues. Transitioning real quick to two birds in particular, Redwood Queen number 190, and I believe it's Traveler 171. Are their status, is the status just a case of it's too early to tell in terms of whether these birds might be nesting, 190 with 477 and 171 with whomever. But is that true that it's just too early to tell on those birds right now?
Yeah, you want to go for it, Darren?
Sure, yeah, happy to. Yeah, with 190, I think we'll know. I don't think it'll be too, if she's already nesting, I don't think it'll be too much longer for us to verify that. It's a little harder because neither her nor 477 have a GPS unit. But just looking through some of the radio data, like the radio signal data as it comes in, and same thing with photo data that we get from trail cameras we have set up at our release site. Once we can verify that we start seeing them more separately more frequently, And also when we're able to hike out to the areas where we believe they're nesting, we can verify if 190 is nesting or not. But it does look pretty likely that if she hasn't started nesting already, that she's going to at some point in the next few months. With 171, it's a little harder. She hasn't nested in a few years, but she has been pretty consistently seen with 209. But 209 is very social, so he could end up pairing up with someone else still. But at this point, it's a little harder to say if 171 is actually nesting this season or not.
Okay, thanks, Darren, very much for that. We're getting fairly close to 5 o'clock, and I'll leave you with one or two really quick questions, and then Joe, I'll just throw it to you to finish it off with whatever last words you might want to mention. But a question about birds switching flocks between Central California and Southern California. These are two disjunct populations, but can you tell us how much movement there is back and forth between the two populations? And also maybe a question both for Kelly and Joe. When the camera is back in operation, how will we know? Can we send out a newsletter or something that just lets people know that they can stop watching the highlights, the camera will be live, and how will we let people know? And I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much to the 233 plus participants in this Zoom chat. Thanks very much. Catch us in March on the 25th for Pete Bloom. And Joe, I'll throw it to you now.
Yeah, so the question about how much they mix. When we first started releasing in 1997, we didn't, the flock, we released for a few years, and then the flocks found each other. So Southern California had been releasing since the early 90s. So they had a flock established in Southern California. The two groups met for the first time in right around 2000 or 2001. And there was a lot of mixing that occurred. We actually had two big sur females that stayed in Southern California. As a result, ended up nesting down there once they hit breeding age. But since then, we haven't seen the level of mixing that we did in that initial meetup. We've had birds from here, mainly from here, go down and mix with their flock, and they typically always come back. So it's that could be more of a function of flocks maturing. We have two sub flocks basically that the mixing is pretty light right now, and that could be more of a function of the maturity of the flock and birds nesting and pairing up. And there's more of a draw to stick around and see what unfolds here at each site than to go see what's going on in Southern California. So again, there's a lot of theories on that, and that's probably could be as much of a function of just the number of birds. I think once we hit different thresholds with the population, that might change. But for now, yeah, we're not seeing as much mixing as we would anticipate. But again, that can change. That can change a lot. That can change any given day, any given week. We could see a big shift happen. But for the last 5-10 years, we haven't really seen the big exchange that we kind of anticipated. And then what was the follow-up? I forgot the other.
The follow-up was just letting people know when the camera will be fixed.
The cam. Yeah, so when we get the cam going, obviously it'll get going, but I think we'll definitely hit all the social media, our Twitter, our Instagram, or our Facebook, and then we'll also directly update this Explore comment thread. Obviously, when that gets on, and I know how dedicated the viewers are on Explore, they will know the minute that cam fires up. They are pretty quick to the get up. They will be excited to have it. So yeah, it'd be big news. We've been missing that cam big time too. So we'll definitely make as much of a splash as we can to let everybody know. And then there's potential for Ventana to do just an e-news update, a quick one. potentially, but for the minimum, we'll be able to do all the social media and the explore.org site. And Kelly can add if he wants, if there's anything else. But
No, I was just going to say, we'll absolutely send out a notification when the camps are fully operational again. And that's probably a great time to say goodbye and thank everybody again for your support and also for being here today. And hope to see you all again next month.
And real quick, we were asked about opportunities to volunteer. Because of COVID-19, we've been obviously pretty limited on that front, but we encourage folks to sign up on our website. There's a notification list that you can get on if you go to that web address here on the page, the ventanaws.org/volunteer. You can sign up there, and Elena Port, our education coordinator, will reach out when those opportunities present themselves. So yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, next chat is March 25th. And we thank everyone for participating and joining in. Love the feedback. And yeah, we look forward to next month and reporting on more nests. Keep your fingers crossed. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care, everybody.